Hello and welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast dedicated to igniting your entrepreneurial spirit and empowering you to conquer new horizons. In this podcast, we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs on their journey to success through some amazingly insightful and expansive conversations. These episodes thrive on thought-provoking chats where our guests fearlessly explore their path to success, sharing their experiences, failures, and triumphs. No topic is off limits as we deep dive into the talked about and not so talked about pieces it takes to build a business, overcome limiting beliefs, deal with personal struggles, and everything in between that shapes our lives and our businesses. I'm your host, Kat Polsinelli, creator and founder at The Lotus Effect, where we believe that success is not just about strategies and tactics, it's about cultivating a powerful mindset and creating customized business operations that align with you and your true purpose. Whether it's mastering time management, improving productivity, enhancing leadership skills, or simply fostering a growth-oriented mindset, we'll provide you with the tools and strategies to flourish in both your business and personal life. I'm so excited to have you join us today in this episode, so get ready to feel empowered and inspired as we learn together and from one another on how to rise above challenges, break through limitations, and unlock our full potential. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome everyone to Real Chat with Kat. I'm so excited to have you guys in here today in this episode. Thank you so much for joining me and my guest, Vanessa. Vanessa, do us all a favor. Tell us who you are, what it is that you do, and what got you into it.
All right. Well, as Kat said, my name is Vanessa. I am a mom of two very rambunctious. I'm not sure of the word. I'm going to make up my own word, but two very crazy little boys that are just loving and sweet, and they are mama's boys, but they are all boys and everything dirty. They are really the main reason why I even jumped into entrepreneurship. But before I get to that, my husband was in the Navy. We moved around for 10 years. And I very much wanted to do the corporate ladder thing and climb up. But with him being in the Navy, I had to kind of put that dream on hold. We moved to really small towns. There wasn't really any marketing industries where we're at. That's what I went to school for. Was had a double degree in business management and marketing, and then a minor in advertising. And my dream was to be the go-between, so like the client advisory between the art team and the clients. I wanted to do client management essentially.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was my dream. I thought I was going to go to New York and be in some big marketing firm like Sex and the City. Like that was my go-to dream. But I also always knew since I was very young that I wanted kids, family, and that life, but I wanted it all together. And then again, I met my husband who was in the Navy, and that kind of flipped things around. So I didn't ever put it away completely, but I did have to put it aside for a little bit. And like I said, we moved to very small towns that were just very military oriented. And so I had found a job with a company while we were in Destin, Florida, and I was like, okay, I could do this, blah, blah, blah. You know, it was a management training program to where I could learn things and do things, and they were all over to where I could move around. I thought it would be a great fit. Well, it turns out we moved to North Carolina, and the closest location was like 3 hours away. So
Oh no.
that kind of put it into that, but that was 2013. They allowed me to work for the call center from home. So before it was a thing of COVID, I've been working at home since 2013. And I worked for the national call center. I did the household side, and then I did the business side of sales. And did that for about 10 years. And we had decided, and in that time we had kids, and Austin and Xander, who are now 7 and 5.
No.
Yeah. And they just turned 7 and 5 last month. So they're it's a really fun age. I'm loving it. But when we, my husband had given me the choice. He's like, where do you want to move when we get out? He's like, you followed me for the military, like you can choose. I was like, well, I want to move home. Like I want parent support. Like we're both from the same area. So we would have
Mhm.
his parents and my parents. And, and he had decided to change career fields from medical to IT. And we're in the Melbourne, Florida area where NASA is, and there's huge tech boom,
Oh,
IT boom
wow.
that's in this area. So it just made a lot of sense, even more so, more sense to move home. And what I thought I was going to do was still have the same dream and climb the corporate ladder, go back into corporate,
Mhm.
and just one of the DoD, the Department of Defense companies that works for the military, like contractors for the military,
Yeah.
and just kind of do that way and stay in logistics, which is where I was working before. And I did all the good girl things. I got an interview. I like sent the thank you letters and whatever. I don't remember what you're supposed to do after interview, but I did all the things you're technically supposed to do. And I waited 6 weeks for them to tell me, no, we found someone else. Or
Oh,
we chose someone else. And it was like just that short little email. I was like, are you effing kidding me? Like how? So I got really, really mad. I was pretty pissed off for a while. And then COVID happened. That's kind of all in the same time frame. And
oh,
I was,
wow.
yeah. Husband had just got out of the military, and we were already in Florida before because we were stationed in Chicago. I was like, I don't want to do another winter. And the kids, we needed to
Mm.
find them daycare when we moved home, and we were guaranteed a spot in August and September in 2019. And so during that time of COVID, like I said, I kept trying to find jobs, and like my job was going berserk because we were in logistics and renting trucks and things like that. So like the business side of it just like boomed. And it was really, really stressful. And then in July of 2020, I found an ad on Facebook that said how to become a stay-at-home bookkeeper. And I clicked on it. I was like, hmm, okay, like this kind of makes sense. I was like, well, I liked accounting when I was doing college, and I actually did really good in accounting. I understood it. Like, finally use my marketing degree other than sales, like marketing strategies and things like that.
Yeah.
And it was like it made a lot of sense. And until you get in a situation, this is like my life motto, until you get in a situation, don't ever know what your answer is going to be because you're never going to know until you're in that situation. And I
Mhm.
think with kids, my vision again was to be that executive mom with the kids and all of that, and husband, happy family, living out the American dream. And then I really realized I was like, well, if I had gotten that job at the DoD company, then I would have been spending way less time with my kids. My paycheck may have gone up. I may have gotten out of the house, but now I'm adding a commute. I hadn't
Yeah.
had to commute anything. I wasn't required to work overtime, which I would, depending on what projects that DoD company would have had. I would have had to work overtime and weekends and things like that. So it's like, it just really made me question and ask like what I wanted. And what I wanted was to spend time with my kids
Mm.
and still have a career. I didn't want to give up either or, but I also didn't
Yeah.
want to be a slave to a job anymore. So it really, really resonated, and I could kind of see it all come together when I was reading the little ebook. And so I joined that course and I started a bookkeeping company, which I have now sold. I found out I don't like bookkeeping. I think it is extremely important, but for any business owner, it's just not my jam. And
Mhm.
I got the bookkeeping company to a point where I wasn't even doing the bookkeeping. I was really just doing the marketing and the sales and kind of overseeing
Oh, wow.
and
Okay.
the executive type role. But I was listening to this video one day. It was about profit and loss, which if you don't know what that is right now, that's fine. But that's like the most basic thing of bookkeeping that
Yeah.
there is, and explains your expenses and profit and all of that for the business owners. And there was this British guy. He was super funny. Like, I love British accents. I just think they're awesome. And they amuse me, like, in a really, I mean that in such a nice way. Like, they just, I don't know. But and he had these like cool video effects and all these things. He was talking about profit and loss, and I was just like, oh my God, I'm so bored.
Oh,
I
no.
can't sell this. I'm like, if I have all these entertaining aspects and I'm bored by the subject, I was like, it just clicked. I was like, I can't do this. I'm not going to be able to sell it and grow the company the way I want it if
Hmm.
I'm not interested in it. Like I said, I still believe in bookkeeping and that it needs to be done, but it just wasn't for me to be able to do. So I sold that officially in November 2022. And what I learned a lot from that was I learned I love networking. I joined a lot of networking groups. I met a lot of people. I loved listening to their stories and seeing where they're
Hmm.
at. I learned that I could really connect people. Like, I just know it's like, okay, this person and this person will match really, really well. And I've never had anyone tell me that they hated the person that I connected them to. So,
Sounds like a superpower.
it is. It's my superpower. And just knowing how two personalities will mesh and just having a very wide network of like, oh, I know who I can send you to. Or, maybe if I'm kind of in between two people, I'll give them the option,
Hmm.
but like I know that either will work. So I learned that, and I was like, how can I make a business that I can just connect people? Like, I can't do that. And it just kind of made me self-reflect. And I went into like, oh, I'm gonna do recruiting for bookkeepers and do that and hire them like contracted bookkeepers. And then it morphed into like, no, I don't like that. And just kind of kept taking one step at a time of figuring out things I liked and I didn't like. And what
Hmm.
I landed on was what I love doing most was helping people with the questions, like when I was in my bookkeeping course of like how to start your business, things to start your business, who to connect you to, who
Hmm.
to point you to for this thing or that thing. So what I am now doing is helping corporate moms ditch their jobs so that they can start the business of their dreams without the overwhelm. So what I do is I walk you through a 4-step process of to leave your corporate job, and then a 8 or 9 step process to set up the business with the foundation. And then you have me one-on-one. I am your Google so that you don't have to get 1,000 different answers. You can get a direct, concise answer from me who has been there and can walk you through probably the most scary spot of starting a business, when you're like, oh, I
Hmm.
kind of want to do it, but I don't know if I want to do it. Like, I want someone to ask questions to, but I like, who do I talk to? So I am the person to talk to for that. And I really just, hold my hand or hold my clients' hands of where they're at. And we
Hmm.
really just dive into what you need, and I'll guide you from that point. And it's fluid, but there are exact steps that you can take to that. And so that in a nutshell is me and what I do.
And it's so unique, that you came up with this, basically like this bridged gap in between all the things that people are doing when they're getting into business, because people don't really know which direction that they want to go or should go. And for most people that are getting into the entrepreneurial space, unless that you're friend group and your connected people are already a ton of entrepreneurs. Most of us are coming from a job, right? Or from corporate and moving into the space. And so we don't have the connections or the people to chat with. And it is hard sometimes to find out like who is going to help you get those essential foundational pieces set up in your business to move forward. And most coaches and everything, like, they're great with like, oh, we need to do this and here are some strategies, but there are some pertinent pieces when you're beginning a business that do need to be put in place that I do feel like a lot of us skip. Even when you were talking about bookkeeping, I know that the first probably year and a half in my business, I mean, I kept track of it kind of. I would go back at the end of the year and kind of, go back through it and find things and kind of start to piece things together. But it wasn't until I hired a CPA that I learned about profit and loss, right? And that really kind of stuck out. And that's when I realized like, oh, okay, wow, I really probably need something more than like a piece of paper where I'm kind of keeping up with where I have spent money. I love that you bridge that gap for people that a lot of people aren't aware of when it comes to getting set up in the business before you get moving forward with all the other pieces.
Exactly. Yeah. And when I'm a course junkie. I'm going to admit that. I've hired a few different coaches and done a few different things. And then every program that I was in, it like buzzed past all the things you're supposed to do to set up your legit business. And a lot of people are like, wait, did I do this right? Am I going to pay a fine? Am I going to like, what happened? And there just wasn't anyone to really like fill that gap. And that was kind of like, I always was sharing like what I did and things like that with the people that were very new. And especially with every state is so different, so coaches tend to be very broad on what they say. Sometimes you need a county license, sometimes you need a city license, but just knowing to look for those steps so that you can feel like, again, you have that legit business. And kudos to you for at least tracking your expenses. But and if I didn't become a bookkeeper, I seriously doubt I would have tracked my first year of expenses either. That's just not something that you think of coming from the corporate world. Or even if, you're a stay-at-home mom that starts her own business, that's not something you think of. So a huge suggestion, get a CPA. As soon as you open a business, like just get a CPA. You don't have to have a bookkeeper. Just keep as much track as you can. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just get a CPA so that they can file your taxes for you.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I agree with that 1,000%. I want to go back a little bit though, because when you were telling your story and you were talking about like all these different things that you like did and you wanted to do and you were hoping to do, and then like how some of the doors like got blocked and some got open. That to me is like, that is the journey that not a lot of people reflect on or tend to share. We find out that, they did one thing and they jumped into this and then bam, like, right, here's the business. But what I love is that you recognized the pieces that you did like and the pieces that you didn't. And by understanding that, that's what kind of started opening those doors into other pieces, which got you to where you're at now. And I feel like a lot of us, we do have this dream, like you were saying, like we have this painted picture of like who we are and where we're going to be and how our lives are going to be and what our dream job is. And it's interesting that as you go through things and as you grow, and honestly, and correct me if I'm wrong or tell me your opinion, as you kind of let go of that control of trying to force that dream the way you want it, that's when things kind of like open up in front of you and you're like, oh yeah, no, I don't like doing this. Yeah, no, this would be 10 times better. But it is kind of letting go of that painted picture that we have that to some degree is a lot of what society has kind of pushed on people as well. And I love that you got to the point to where you left yourself open on that.
Yeah, letting go of the stories or the shoulds or I have to or I need to has really been the work over the last 3.5 years. I have had a life coach since I started, and she was in the bookkeeping program, and then I moved to her personal program. Um, and that's really kind of opened my mind and like, oh, I don't have to follow those rules. Oh, I am a person. Like, that's not me. That's what someone's telling me I have to do or I should do or how, I wanted to do it. So, it's not a perfect journey by any means. And I think that is something also people need to know. It is a very messy journey. There's a lot of ups and downs, but it's going to go like this and continue to go up, but it's not going to be a straight up. You're going to have bumps in the road along with successes in your life as well. So
yeah, definitely. And I love that you took the opportunity to hire a coach in the very beginning to kind of help you figure those things out. I do feel like a lot of us are still trying to figure out what coaches are worth and what their purpose is. And there's so many out there, right? Like it is a huge thing right now. A lot of people are becoming coaches and say they do all these things. But when you find one that aligns with you and that really kind of vibes with who you are, it really does. It's nice to have someone that's in your court that's outside of your immediate family, right? Because, and I don't know how it worked for you, but I know like for me, when I talk to my family about it and kind of explained, it's kind of like this blank stare, right? Like they get it and they're like, oh, okay. But that's kind of like it. Like they don't really there's a different level of support and someone that you can kind of go back and forth to. And in my personal opinion, and my favorite, someone that can also call you on your shit.
Exactly. Yes, I've been
to put you
called
back on
on
track.
my shit many a times, and I like to think of it too as like, I don't know if you watch Shrek or like, I don't know. I watched it a lot when I was younger.
Yes.
And like when he was talking about an onion and layers, like that's literally what it is. It's like you feel like all right, like I've accomplished this, I'm past this, like I don't have to deal with it again. And then it comes back up in like a new layer. And it's like every time you get to new layers, like you're growing stronger and you're being able to handle more, which sometimes feels like it sucks a lot. And you're like, I don't want to go through this again. But at the same time, like having that coach on the outside perspective to like, hey, I'm going through this, and they've got the 10,000 foot view. They're an outside perspective that can be like, hey, like it's okay, you're normal, and especially when you're in like a group coaching type of thing, like you see that you're normal. Like you're not the only crazy person with
Yes.
these crazy thoughts. Especially like I don't know so much about men. Like my husband talks about having like no thoughts in his head at a time. And I'm like, how do you have nothing going in your head? Like, is that a thing? And so, it's just really learning to kind of connect and see those thoughts for what they are. And you can either choose to dismiss them, or it's like, hey, maybe I need to investigate that a little bit further and see where to go with it. And the coaching aspect of that really helps. So
Yeah. And I love the Shrek reference. This is like one of my all-time favorite movies, like all of them, just FYI, everybody.
Yeah.
But the onion is so true. One thing that I have found that is really interesting and unique is, like you were saying, as you peel those layers back and you think that you've dealt with something, it tends to come up in a different layer. But where the growth part is in that is in the beginning, when you were discovering it, it's like super scary. It freaks you out. There's all these emotions. There's so many attachments to that. But when it comes up later in like that fourth, fifth, or sixth layer, there's a different shift in the way that you view it, right? Like, I know for me, like I noticed it, but there was a different way of noticing it. It wasn't like someone had to make me aware of it and then we had to dive in. I was able to start catching it, right? So you'd like go partway through the motions and be like, oh, wait a minute. That's that thing. Like, I remember that. I remember dealing with that. I remember going through that. And it's interesting, like as you continue to go up those layers and pull things apart, and that to me is growth, is where you really start to see the patterns that you had. And not only are you able to see them, but now you're able to kind of stop them in their tracks before they get way far down the road, and you get to start honing it back in. And to me, that's really the freedom of learning to control your life, if you want to call it that, right? Because now you're able to recognize all of the things.
Or learning that you don't have control at all, but at least you can recognize what's going on. Releasing the control is usually where the magic happens, right?
Yes.
Which is
yes,
annoying.
1000%.
Totally agree. Like, it's annoying, but if I could control this, like, it would be better. In reality, it's like none of us have control. Like, it just is what it is, and it's whatever our story is about it that makes it good or bad. Like, the thing is not that. Rain on a wedding day is not good or bad. It's how you see it, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's all in perspective. Just like you. Yeah. I love that. And it's interesting too, like, so, you know, you work with people that are in those foundational building blocks when you're helping them get set up. Is this something that you find that you come across a lot when you're helping people like get over that hump of taking an idea to creating a business to actually making it legitimate, not just something you talk about on social media?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and really, like, especially for the ones that are leaving corporate, there's a whole nother mindset that goes through that. It's like, well, how do I do that? How do like, who do I talk to? Like, do I just turn in my 2 weeks? Do I just like say F you, I'm leaving? Like, I know I wanted to do that towards the end. But at the same time, it's like just, giving you the stats of who to talk to and to give you that vision of what it'll look like when you make that step out of corporate. So really in allowing it to be your journey, not judging or comparing yourself to other people's journey and how they did it. Some people leave corporate and they just ditch their job and their business skyrockets. Great for them, and it must be possible because it happens. But then some people take their time and they need to, and this is what I did. You grow your business alongside your 9 to 5. And sometimes it takes time. And, eventually I ripped off the Band-Aid and just made the full leap into it. But before I like replace my income or anything, but at the same time, like, just to know that your journey is your own, really. And part of it too is like when you have a legit business and it's set up correctly, you're going to treat it a lot differently than if you're just kind of like, this is a side hustle. And if you want a side hustle, that's fine too. I would still make a legitimate business out of it. So when you decide to scale or make it something more, one, you're still protected because you're separating it from your personal assets, so to speak. But yeah, it's definitely a thing.
And I appreciate that you brought up the fact that everybody's journey is different. And so everyone has to figure out what works for them. I do feel like that is something that a lot of people do kind of glaze over, right? You do get a lot of people that are like, oh, it's your passion. It's your passion. You're going to love it. Just dive in head first. And for some people, like you're saying, that doesn't necessarily work, or their situation that wouldn't necessarily work. So like as fired up as you can get someone and as excited as they may be in that moment, having that plan of action and knowing what works for you in your life and in your business makes a huge difference versus what worked for somebody else, like you said, especially those that do jump full on into their business. And that's great. And I think that comes back to knowing who you are and how you do things as well, right? And if you know that taking that deep dive is going to set you in such a panic mode that it's probably going to have a long lasting effect, then it's not smart for you to just dive in head first. Because while yes, it makes sense to step into the uncomfortable, there's also a boundary within that uncomfortable that's not talked about. And you have to balance that out and figure out where your fine line is for that. Because if you choke yourself out so much to be uncomfortable because that's what everyone says to do, that you put yourself in that fight, flight, or freeze mode, then your business isn't going to go anywhere. You're going to fall down into the cracks. Then you're going to feel like a failure. And it's not necessarily that it's your fault. It's just you didn't think about how you attune to the way that you want to do things. And if you're more comfortable with having a plan of action, or like you said, following those steps to start a side hustle, and maybe you start a side hustle and you love it, and then you realize like a year down the road, like, oh, okay, I don't want this to be a side hustle. Like, I enjoy this so much. I want this to be a legitimate business. That's completely and totally okay. And I love that you brought that up, because I don't think a lot of people share those in between pieces. It's either get started and try to replace your income, or just dive in head first, because if you don't, you're not going to do it.
Yeah. And this isn't against any coaches out there. I still believe in coaching fully. But they're going to give you their best results. It's marketing. Like, they're going to tell you, like, get 6 figures in 6 months or whatever it is that they're selling. And it's not that it's not true, but it's not true for most people. Like, when you see those big, not even offers, what am I thinking of? Like, promises that they can get. And it really, if you look at the wording, it's not a promise, because they're not going to promise it, because that's a legality. But it's like, you can, or you could, or potentially, like, there's all those words that implement, you can do this. And part of it is you doing the work as well. But again, a lot of people don't always make that huge money in that first little bit. But a coach also, just like if you're an athlete when you're a kid, you had a coach. So you didn't know what you were doing. You had a coach. They had that outside perspective. They told you, all right, work on this, this, and this. And it's the same thing with a business coach. Like, I don't know why. I mean, I do know why, but like, a lot of adults feel like we have to know everything, or like, we can't get help in anything, and that we should just be able to figure out ourselves. And what I've really come to learn is, no, I'm going to ask for help in the areas that, one, I don't feel like figuring out, or two, I really just have no idea where to start. I didn't know how to start a business, so I bought a program that kind of taught me basics of how to start a business and how to run the business. So yeah.
And but that's such a huge piece when you really think about it, is because of a lot of us, especially coming from corporate, right? We are so used to, especially as high achievers, we get in this role of like, oh, I can do all the things. And that's why it makes you such a good employee, because you're always willing to take on more and more and more, until the point where you're completely exhausted and you don't have space to do all the things. If you bring that mentality over when you're doing your business, the same thing is going to happen. So the sooner that you can find people that align with your goals and your vision and what you want to do, and say, hey, I don't know this, I don't understand this, or I know that I need help in it, and allow someone else to give you that perspective and give you those pointers, the quicker you're going to get into the business and into the momentum, and you're going to start feeling good about yourself and what you're doing, versus what you're exactly right. What a lot of people tend to do when they get into their business is, we think we can figure it all out. Oh, it's fine. I got that. I'll figure this. I'll just Google this and I'll figure this out. But in reality, what you're actually doing is, you're not only wasting time, you're wasting potential money that you could be bringing in by focusing more on what you do know. And if you want to learn something that you don't, like you were saying, like the bookkeeping and stuff like that, so that you understand the process, that's fantastic. And at the same time, make sure that you're not trying to learn all of the things to the point to where you can't keep everything straight. And like you said, if you are watching it, or you're learning it, or you're going through it, and you are like completely bored, and there is just no connection of like, ooh, this would be interesting, you need to learn right then and there that, okay, when I need to continue dealing with this, or when this comes back up, I just need to delegate it out. Like, this is already something I know that is not something I want to do. So where can I budget to where, when this happens again, or when I need to move into this space, I go ahead and hand it off, so that you can focus on the pieces that do bring momentum into building that business.
Exactly. Yep. Totally agree. I had a thought and it left my head. Uh, but yeah, and then also I remember what I was going to say. So in coaching too, like I said, I've had multiple coaches that have taught me different things and I've implemented it in multiple ways. And some of those strategies didn't work. And it wasn't that it just didn't work for me. And like
Mm-hmm.
really trying not to judge yourself, like, well, why isn't this working? And it's, it just maybe it doesn't align with you. And I really want to suggest like people not to be afraid to hire another coach or whatever. Like if you feel spoken to, and maybe you just get a course of theirs instead of an entire course or whatever. But this is also something like as the business owner is considered professional development. Just like you would go on things in your corporate job, to do professional development. As an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, you have that as well. And it is tax deduction. So it can be considered startup costs and all of that. So it's not like this bad thing. And, one of the things I really had to get over was being in debt as a business owner. Like you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to make a
Mm.
profit right away. Like, and it depends on your comfortableness with the level of debt that you're in or whatever. Like I'm not saying go like get your family into bankruptcy or anything like that. But at the same time, like we always lead ourselves to, I'm going to be in so much debt, I won't pay it off, and then we're going to die.
Yeah.
Usually that's what it leads to. Like our fear leads to death, essentially.
Yeah.
Um, and I had to really work through that a lot. And I don't regret any of the coaching that I've got because I've learned so many different things. And I've also learned what I don't like. It's like, nope, not doing that. So it's not a bad thing at all. And you just get more comfortable. More like again, most business owners do not make a profit until 3 years usually. And it takes about 18 months to really start getting your feet wet
Mm-hmm.
as a business owner to maybe start making profit. And I think a lot of online entrepreneurs, we feel like we just have to start making money or kind of barely making like ends meet sort of thing, or we can't go into
Yeah.
too much debt. Um, and that because again, there is such a low cost of entry to online entrepreneurship. You don't technically have to pay anything. But if you think of like, Donald Trump or Steve Jobs or any of them, they had debt starting their businesses. They had investors, they had these things. So like
Mm-hmm.
maybe you're your own personal investor or you're 9 to 5. This is where I got. It was like my 9 to 5 is my investor in my business, and
Ooh, I like
whatever
that.
happens, yeah. And then whatever happens, like my family will be okay. We have been okay. If I need to go get a job because we're in too much debt or we're uncomfortable or whatever, then I can go get a job and it can be paid off very easily. Or I could win the lottery, or like there's just so many different options. But like worst comes to worst, you're not a failure if you go back and get a job and maybe you get a part-time
Mm-hmm.
job, so like it's your own journey. That's like the biggest thing is like you can do whatever the hell you want. You can make your own rules that work for you and you can change your mind.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and definitely 100% you can change your mind, like you said. And it being your unique journey is something that a lot of us need to remember. And like you said as well, letting go of that judgment is such a huge piece of it, because we do live in a society where everything is like now, gotta have here, go, 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 go. And it doesn't work that way. And for a lot of people, I know it happened to me as well. When I stepped out of corporate and I got into the entrepreneurial journey, I was the same way. I was like, oh my God, I'm not making money. I didn't make money this month. I didn't make money this month. I didn't make money this one. Right. Because you are in such a mind frame of, I should have a paycheck. But when you are building something, just like you said, like Donald Trump and Steve Jobs and all of them, they started from the bottom. Like they had debt as well. And like you said, you have to understand what you consider good debt and what you consider bad debt, and knowing where your boundaries are in between that, and knowing that it's okay. Like, hey, if I need to go do something part-time, if I need to do DoorDash or something to fill this spot for just this one thing, that doesn't make you a failure. It's just that's the way that your journey goes, and that's the way that it works best for you. And there's so many people out there that are doing it that way. You just don't know about it.
Yep. I went and got us like, so I quit my job for about 6 months-ish, 8 months. And I was like, not, we were doing fine, but I was like, I'm tired of working at home. Like it had been since 2013, so close to 10 years of working at home. I was like, I just want to talk to people. Like I want an easy, fun job that I can just go talk to people, get out of my mom duties for like a
Yeah.
couple nights a week. So I went and found the serving job, and I had a lot of fun. And it was a blast, and I was just getting like money in my hand every day, like that I worked, and it was just a lot of fun. And I got out of the house and was able to just have quote unquote meaningless conversation. Like I wasn't talking about my business, like there
Mm-hmm.
was no agenda behind anything, and it just felt really, really good. And in May, it became not fun anymore. It felt like a job. I felt like I was back in corporate, and I was like, peace, I'm out of here. And it felt so good to just be able, whatever. Like,
Oh,
like the difference of being able to just leave a job because you want to leave a job instead of feeling like you have to be there. It's
yeah.
just, it's really a different feeling for sure.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that, because
Yeah.
that's so important when it comes to this journey and understanding that it's okay, right? You can still have a plan. Your plan is probably never going to go exactly how you want it to. Just understand that.
Yeah,
But it's
never.
okay, because right, because as long as you stop forcing it down one specific road and just take those turns when they come, it does, like you said, it rolls, and it makes things so much easier. And if you have to pivot, great, no big deal. And then when you pivot the other direction, hey, cool, great, no problem. And it, while there is still some anxiety or uncomfortableness, it's not to the extreme to where you just shut down completely and you don't know which direction to go at
Mhm.
all. So thank you so much for sharing that. As we come to a close, I always like to ask one thing from my guests, and that is, do you happen to have a quote or a piece of advice you'd like to share with the audience?
Just start. Start somewhere. Start anywhere. Start messy. Start cleaned up, however you want to start, but just start. Like you're going to regret not starting more than you would if you started and you're like, hey, I don't like it, or oh, this
Mm-hmm.
wasn't what I thought it was. I'm going to go back to my job. Like just start. You're not going to know if you actually like it unless you try it. And I'm not saying leave your job or anything like that, but if you want to start something, like go find a Facebook group that talks about the subject that you want to maybe kind of do or whatever. Like just
Yeah.
investigate it a little bit. And you can decide before you even don't start if you don't want to do it. But just start somewhere instead of questioning it in your head for a super long time, or maybe talk to someone or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Just get those ideas out of your head. So
Yes, solid, totally solid advice. Thank you so much, Vanessa. So share with our audience then, how can everybody connect with you, work with you, be in your world?
So I have a Facebook group. It is a rather long name, so I will send that to you so that you can just post the link in the bio. And then I am mainly on Facebook, and I don't think I mentioned when I made the pivot. I made the pivot in November, so I'm still currently working on building this business. So my website and everything like that isn't set up, but I'm in the process of hiring a coach to kind of walk me through because I don't like tech things. Um, and so it will be set up. I will send you that. But yeah, Facebook right now is the main place to get in touch with me, or by email.
Wonderful. Well, we'll make sure we have all that information in the show notes as well, including her Facebook group. So if you guys feel compelled to be in Vanessa's world, if you're looking to start a business and would like to figure out the foundational pieces to making a legitimate business, be sure to reach out and connect with her. And to everybody else that's out there, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today, Vanessa. Thank you so much for all of your information. And don't forget, until next time, do one thing positive for someone each and every day in your life and see the difference that it makes in your life. So until next time, have a fantastic day. Hello again, and thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. If you enjoyed this episode and it brought tons of value, we ask that you please share, like, and subscribe. Your support means the world to us and helps us to reach even more inspiring entrepreneurs who can benefit from these powerful conversations. If you haven't already, be sure to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, as this feedback is an amazing gift that fuels our growth and helps us to continually improve this podcast. Looking for an extra dose of inspiration and empowerment? Then be sure to connect with me on social media. You can find me at The Lotus Effect, where I share valuable resources and tips while sharing my own journey of being an entrepreneur. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs and services, be sure to check out my website at the-lotus-effect.com. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of Real Chat with Kat. Your presence and support makes all the difference. Remember, whether you find yourself in the depths of the mud or on the path of growth, we all have a unique journey. And just like the lotus, some of us start in the dirtiest of mud, yet as we rise and grow, we blossom into something beautiful, unique, and truly one of a kind. To all of my visionaries out there, keep rising and growing as you create your own Lotus Effect.